Kendall Johnson, the college editor here at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, alongside Carter Yates. How you doing, man?
It's the best time of the sports calendar year, NFL draft. We don't need to talk about the NBA playoffs.
I was about to say April. Like, I was about to say the opposite of that. Of course, in the studio as well is Mallory Hartley, everyone's favorite Mal Pal. How are you, Mallory?
Hey, good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Everybody can hear each other this time. So.
Exactly. Yeah, so a little bit behind the scenes. If you saw our first episode, which was 2 weeks ago, the first episode we were all here together, Mallory could not hear Carter, and Carter could not hear Mallory. And so...
and I could not hear Matt.
And also Carter could not hear Matt Wilson, our guest. So, first of all, credit to Mallory, because she coordinated that very well. And she basically said, hey, you're going to have to be a pretty good host and help Carter transition, and I will try to make things happen behind the scenes so that it makes it look like a completely seamless broadcast, which it ended up doing.
And if you look at your 2 new headphones that you're wearing on your pretty little faces, those are new too, so you can absolutely 100% hear me very clearly. So don't act like you can't hear me anymore, okay? Yeah. There's no excuse
that
this
trick
time.
Doesn't work anymore.
That trick doesn't work anymore because you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I bought those headphones.
Yeah, so there you go. Thank you, Mallory, for continuing to upgrade us. We got the new studio, and we're still upping the game every single week. So, of course, this is Republic Football, our college football podcast here at Dave Campbell's. We are, as Carter mentioned, it is the best time of year, April.
Yes.
Which is what the NFL wants us to say. It's the best time of year, the time to be thinking about football in April, which means the NFL draft is coming up on Thursday. First round, of course, second, third on Friday, and then the rest of it on Saturday. They've just made a whole spectacle of that weekend. So we'll be doing our little own NFL news draft or NFL draft dump / preview kind of things to look forward to. By the way, if you are curious about some content, right? Carter's dropping a feature on Tyrus Knight tomorrow for UTEP. Mm-hmm. He already dropped a feature on, I know this is sacrilegious to say, but Oklahoma tackle Tyler Guyton.
Texas guy by heart.
He is by way of Manor, Texas. Did not play football until his senior year of high school. Now potentially a first-round pick. Of course, Mike Craven has a feature over Adonai Mitchell from Texas and kind of how the birth of his daughter kind of changed things for him. Potential
really
first-round
good
pick.
piece.
Yeah, really good piece. So again, Corey Hogue as well. Of course, if you want a FCS breakdown, somebody like a Jalix Hunt for Houston Christian is going to be called this weekend in terms of some of the picks. So we have you covered, right? From high school through the draft, you can kind of expect that kind of coverage on TexasFootball.com. So subscribe as well, but also go check out those pieces if you haven't yet. All right, but first, we do have some news and notes. The portal is open. A bunch of spring games are finally wrapped up. They're good. Arch Manning won the Super Bowl, apparently.
Where does Arch Manning's spring game rank among the all-time spring games at Texas?
It ranks next to Malik Murphy's last year, where everybody said he was awesome.
I don't know. I think Arch's might have been better.
Arch was better. Don't get me wrong. It helped that the wide receivers are really good. Like I'm not saying Arch isn't good, and Arch did not impress, but it also helps. Like, yeah, man, Jonte Cook's like their 4th guy.
Well, it also helps that the defensive backs were tripped up by ghosts too.
That is very true. By the way, speaking of backs, that kind of gets into our next story.
One of those guys that got tripped up by a ghost is no longer with us.
Somebody saw the film, and it wasn't. It was probably Steve Sarkisian. Was like, probably move on from his. Terrence Brooks is in the portal for Texas, starting corner last year. So on paper, yes, you lose a starter in April, it's probably bad. Texas's secondary wasn't outside of Malik Muhammad. Texas secondary last year wasn't exactly full of guys who we need to hold on to every single one, and we are set there for the future. Mm-hmm. Malik Muhammad is the golden cow for that room right now, and they brought in Clemson.
Andrew
Mukuba as well for Clemson for safety. But they probably still could upgrade, right? They lose Ryan Watts, who was up and down, but still that's somebody you would like to probably hold over. And so Terrence Brooks enters the portal. I don't know. What were your first thoughts? I think it's a nice to have, but not a need to have.
Yeah, well, my first thought, so Anwar Richardson reported that this was a Texas decision here, so they kind of had a conversation after the spring football game, and we're starting to see this more in
He just turned around the game tape. He was like, excuse me?
He said, so we're going to need you to hop in the portal. So we're starting to see this more in this era of college football with the transfer portal opening in the spring, and I get it, but my thing is, who's the guy that steps up for Terrence Brooks? Because Malik Muhammad is the golden calf, but is it Gavin Holmes? That's the other cornerback they have on the roster. And Texas was 113th in the nation last year in passing defense. Westcott Eberts at Burn Orange Nation had a great stat, though, because that 113th in the nation is a little misleading. He said of the 3,500 passing yards and 21 passing touchdowns allowed, 2,719 touchdowns came while Texas had the lead. So it's basically teams having to throw to play from behind.
Sure.
Either way, not the best numbers that you wanted. But what this led me to believe was, does Texas have an upgrade in mind? And then I saw someone from UTSA, Denver Harris, tweet.
That was like the most, again, if it meant nothing, it was like the most ill-timed or like the most unnecessarily timed tweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that was intentional.
Oh, and it was definitely
to be
intentional,
intentional.
but it was very much like, why did you do that? Unless you're actually thinking about it.
Yeah.
So yes, Denver Harris, who of course is at UTSA now, former A&M and LSU player, former 5-star.
Who we've gassed up on this show.
Oh yeah,
multiple times.
if he stays in San Antonio, he's gonna probably be all conference AAC. He tweeted out on Twitter, and we're just like, are we doing this?
It would be the most perfect transfer portal story
It might
if
be.
that happened.
He just like flirts with the G5. He's like,
Yeah.
never mind, I'm going back.
Because my first thought was I could see Steve Sarkisian in an August preseason media availability being like, Denver Harris, has really matured. I think he's done a great job to change his mental makeup.
In the 2 weeks I've known him.
In the 2 weeks I've known him, it's like Jeff Chandler's running summer camp. Right now.
Yeah, exactly. He had a great couple months at a really good facility, and now we're back here, and now he's ready to play some football. No, so yeah, I think it is. They have somebody in mind, right? Whether it's him, whether it's somebody else in the portal right now. I think it's pretty clear that you don't get somebody out like a veteran like that unless you have a really good option. The other one that was, I don't think too surprising either, but just this one kind of bummed me out. Bryce Foster, also in the portal. The Mountain, A&M's former starting center, and of course former 5-star here, Dave Campbell's. He was incredible for that Katie Taylor team. Yeah, like injury, right? Changing offensive line coaches like every year. It just never really worked out for him. He had a great freshman year, and then
First team all SEC freshman team.
yeah, first team all freshman team, and like it just never clicked for him. I think the way that I think A&M fans, us too, obviously, who saw him in high school and knew what he was capable of, we were kind of hoping and kind of, the build was there, right? He's a track star, right? And so like everything was there for like things to translate. And like I said, injuries and inconsistency with his development staff, I think just hampered a really promising career. I'm hoping he lands somewhere that he can kind of at least scrap something together to potentially try for the next level.
I was going to say, do you think he's going to stay in state? Do you think he wants to stay
Honestly,
in
I
state?
have no idea. I have no idea.
I have no read.
Yeah, I was about to say, I have no
No
read
read.
either. He's from Houston, so they could use linemen, right?
Yeah.
Houston could use
Houston
linemen.
actually.
That actually would be a good fit for
Ooh,
him.
I like that.
Yeah.
They could use linemen. I think he is like he hasn't reached the heights, but he is a Power 5 player. Right?
Oh, yeah.
When healthy.
He's got
So,
the talent.
He's not somebody that needs to go to
And
the
the
AAC,
size,
the
yeah.
Sun Belt, or something like that. So I would say that.
I like that, Houston.
Right, exactly. And he seems like, I don't know. I
hope he's
ran
listening.
into him a couple times. Listen to us. But no, I've talked to him a couple times and I've seen interviews. He's a real humble kid, loves his family, right, all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just wants to get closer to home. A&M's not far, but you know what I mean.
I think the writing on the wall was when A&M got the Utah transfer in Kolifahu, and I don't know if I pronounced that right. I'm looking for a phonetic pronunciation of that everywhere, but Utah does not have one.
SIDs, get on that. Not that you don't do enough work on
Yeah,
it.
no,
Yeah.
we respect SIDs.
We really do.
But yeah, I think the writing was on the wall when they portaled him right after the spring, or right before the spring game.
Somewhere around there, yeah. it was
I think
pretty
Bryce
sick.
Foster just needs a change of scenery. There
Yeah.
was times last year we watched him; he was really struggling. He was kind of struggling to snap the ball
Yeah.
at certain points last year.
That's a good point. They had bad center issues last year, A&M did. So, yeah.
So hoping for the best, hoping for a Houston Cougar. Bryce Foster, you are a Houston Cougar.
I really am down for that. I think, like you mentioned, new change of scenery, somebody, which ironically, he's be going to another staff and another development coach, whatever. But again, just get someplace where he can kind of get reps under, and where he isn't having to go up against Georgia defensive linemen every week. So
It's the Squidward meme where he's up on the in the Krusty Krab and he's like, Cougar.
yeah, exactly. That should be Willie Fritz right now.
Yeah, literally.
So I think that's all for the major portal news. There's obviously players are entering the portal, but those are kind of the two headliners right now. I don't know when it closes. Is it May?
not soon enough.
I was just about to say
Yeah,
it feels like it's been open for 8 years.
We're still working on
already.
a little bit behind the scenes. We're still working on the magazine, so like we had to push back a lot of our college deadlines because like we don't know who's going to be officially on the roster yet. So we're still holding our, crossing our fingers. We'll see. Obviously, we have to change things with the Texas depth chart a little bit, but that's always the interesting part with this this time of year is because we're working. We look up and it's like, oh, somebody. Okay, let me go back and change something real quick. So anyway. All right, so that'll do it for just quick news and notes. Like I mentioned, we have the NFL draft coming up Thursday. Carter will be having one more feature on Tyrus Knight from UTEP dropping, and we'll get into our discussion on that in a little bit and kind of our thoughts overall about Texas prospects going into the draft. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor, Home Field Apparel. HomeFieldApparel.com. You can use promo code DCTF to get 15% off your first time purchase. There's also an affiliate link if you've already used your first time purchase. There's also an affiliate link if you go to DCTFCFB on Twitter. There's an affiliate link in there in our bio. Click on that. Anything you buy will be given, sending things back to us as far as a percentage of the sale. So again, if you want to support the show, if you want to support any of the shows on the Republican Football Network, they all have their own affiliate codes. You can follow them on Twitter. Each individual show on Twitter, they have it in their bio as well. I mentioned last time that they had the national championship gear for all the basketball schools. They're starting to get really timely with their national championship drops. Like as soon as I referenced Sports Illustrated. I remember when you used to win a title,
and the first commercial
is Sports Illustrated dropping the commemorative magazine, the book, the whatever you need, right? And so Home Field's kind of doing that with a lot of their merch, and I think it looked really good from UConn to South Carolina in the women's basketball game. So they have tons of stuff. I mean, again, one of my favorite things is their Lamar hoodie, right? The fact that they have genuinely really good Lamar merch is something that's not a given. North Texas, that Super Pit sweater is actually like really, really sick.
Yeah, it rocks.
I love that. That's going to be one of my next purchases as well. I need some SMU stuff too. My goal is to get something from every school they have, Texas, and so I'm almost there. UTEP and SMU are kind of next on my list. All right.
I like it.
Alrighty, and also, by the way, I should mention, if you've been a follower of this show, before I hosted, before Mallory was here, we've had one consistent sponsor since the very beginning.
Honda.
North Texas Honda Dealers. I just want to say shout out to them if you've heard the intro, right? My intro, or Shahan's intro, David Ubbin's intro, right? Literally everybody who's hosted this show has had the same read and had the same intro in the beginning. So we want to send a big thank you to North Texas Honda Dealers. They're here to help. Please, we just want to thank you guys for being a sponsor since day one of the Republican.
They make great cars too.
They really do. Honda is
cars.
one of the reliable ones.
I said it last week on the show. My mom had a Honda for 13 years, a minivan.
Durable.
Nice.
Man, those things are durable.
There you go. All right, Mallory, let's get into our draft talk. All right, so we're going to break this up into kind of a segment discussions. One's kind of starting things off with kind of more centered around Thursday, the first round. But that was kind of limited, right? We kind of know the players who are around there. But then we're going to open it into players we think are kind of sleepers. These are all Texas players, right? We're using our expertise on Texas colleges. Sleepers that we feel aren't getting talked about enough. The best potential fit as far as player to a NFL team. And then also the player we think will be the best player from this draft in the NFL. We come back in 5 years and we look back and say, this guy was the best. We're going to call our shot. We're going to call our shot right now. So, first, go ahead, Mallory.
I was just going to say, so y'all obviously, are you going to watch all 7 rounds of the draft? How do y'all go about
Is
watching
the
the
Pope Catholic?
NFL
Yeah, I'm
draft?
gonna watch all 7
Okay.
rounds.
Carter's locked in.
Not even going to, there's your answer. Never mind. Let's move on.
Carter's going to be that locked in
Let's
guy
move on.
TikTok. I'm just
No,
here
he's gonna be
loaded up.
tweeting. He's
I'm here loaded up watching the draft, ready for all 7
Round
rounds.
7, baby, let's go. Everyone's going to be like, no.
So I've literally had the same routine since I was legitimately since I was 8 years old when they used to have it on the same day. Pay attention to the first round, right? More or less, I have it on and I'm really attentive. I hate that the broadcast, you'll see the pick is in and then 10 minutes pass and then they announce it.
I don't like that
they
either.
Need to fix that.
They know how to make a TV show, I'll say that much. So I'll pay attention to the first round. Second round, I'm still watching, right? I'm okay, I really am curious because a lot of really good names are there. Third round, I start to really kind of find something else to do, but I have it on. And then the 4th and 7th round, I will track it on Twitter. I have alerts on my phone, or I will have it on in the background doing something else, right? But I am interested.
Locked in.
Right, I'm interested.
Not
'cause,
locked in, you're-
you'll Yeah, I'm locked in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And then like after
You
that,
have the
I do
key in the
it all.
lock, but
Yeah, exactly.
it hasn't turned all the way
Trying to
yet.
close the door a little bit.
You're starting to unlock it at that point.
Exactly. So, so I am curious. Like, I'm genuinely curious where Jalen Hunt's going to go. Right. We'll talk about him in a bit. But so that's how I watch it. That's how literally. I remember playing video games when the 6th round was going on. And I was like, oh, so and so. You know, Cliff Kingsbury just got drafted. That's awesome. You know. So I've had the same routine. I just hit my mic. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to wearing a mic. So yeah, that's how I've watched it since I've been a little kid.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I feel like I'm locked into the first 2 rounds, especially if, you know, there's a Michigan State player that I'm really locked into. I like to watch to see where they all go. But kind of the same way, like I'll keep up with it past the first and second round, but definitely first round I'm locked in. Because I just in general, you recognize all those names. You've watched these players go through, you know, all these different colleges, especially if there's a bunch of Texas players that we think are going to do well. So yeah, same thing. I'm locked into first and probably second round, but then beyond that, it's just kind of like, oh, you know, push notifications. We'll see if there's a Texas player that goes, and interesting. But yeah, definitely just first and second. Really.
Carter wears a jersey. Watching the
I
second
wear my Cowboys jersey while I watch the 6th round. But I tell you what, we got some intriguing guys from Texas colleges that'll be going on day 3 that I think could play a long time in the NFL.
I was about to say, this is going to be one of the more locked in I think I've been for the later rounds, for at least through the 5th-ish round, because that's about Jalen Hunt range around there. But like, we'll get into it now. Let's start up top, actually. Let's go with
Let's go Thursday. Who are you going to watch for Thursday?
yeah, like, I mean, the obvious name's Byron Murphy, right? He's
Okay,
probably...
he's going to go first.
He's very likely, that I'd pencil it like 80% that he is the first Texas player drafted. Defensive tackle from Texas, of course. The only reason he didn't probably stand out. I mean, I do appreciate that he's standing out more because Tavondre Sweat won a lot of the accolades.
Yeah.
And so, but then when they get to the testing and all that, they're like, okay, this guy is kind of probably a big reason why Tavondre Sweat was able to do a lot.
Allow me to officially retract my best NFL draft prospects that I wrote in February because I put Tavondre Sweat over Byron Murphy. This was before the offseason and the combine where Tavondre Sweat was like, if I sit for a week, I gain 30 pounds.
Right,
So
yes.
Byron Murphy had a better offseason, I would say. I did see, however, on a mock draft pick that Dane Brugler with The Athletic had the Cincinnati Bengals getting T. Sweat and Byron Murphy.
They need help
Just
on that.
running it back with
Yeah.
Texas defensive linemen.
Yeah,
They need it. They need help bad.
I'm going to be curious. I mean, I know we're still on Byron Murphy, but I am curious, like, do people think the arrest, how far does the arrest take Tavondre Sweat? You know, because, like, I don't think it's something that would be too bad, but, like, that combined with, like, his, like, you know, his issue staying in shape and things, is that like, are those like yellow flags that turn into a red flag?
I think it's exactly what it is. If he had Byron Murphy's offseason, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but he was already not having a great offseason.
Right.
And
That's a
it's
good
kind of just exacerbating the concerns people already had about him. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, Todd McShay was on, and he was talking about how after the NFL Combine and Pro Days, like this is the time where guys start to mess up. Like this is the time where scouts really start to lock in their players because they have so much free time.
Right.
For the first time in their college careers, really. So I don't know if Tavondre Sweat handled that.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So yeah, he's going to be, Byron Murphy, I mean, is going to be likely the first player taken. The other players who are kind of around there, which I think makes for a very interesting later round, right? A.D. Mitchell from Texas. I think Xavier Worthy's kind of worked with that 40 time. I think he's worked his way into that fringe area. I think he'll still be second round, but we've seen teams trade up just for speed, right?
Do we want to have the talk of who's going to go first, A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy?
I think it's A.D. Mitchell.
I think it's probably A.D. Mitchell. Does John Ross running the 4.22 and then flaming out so hard actually hurt Xavier Worthy?
I mean, you can go back to Darius Hayward-Bay. You can
That's
go, you
true.
can go like the guys that light up the 40 at receiver don't always translate. So I think I don't know if it hurts him, but I think it does stop teams from like trading up. You know, like I don't know if teams are gonna. 10 years ago, I think somebody trades up to get him, in my opinion. Now I don't see that this year.
But who's going to be the better pro prospect, do you think, A.D. or Xavier Worthy?
I think it's Worthy. I mean, sorry, I think it's AD.
That's where I'm going to differ from you. I think it's Worthy.
Okay, interesting. Mallory, you want to be a tiebreaker? we'll talk about it, but I'm also curious about your opinion.
Red or blue? I don't know. Like, Xavier Worthy? I just think they're so similar, you know. And I mean, I think Xavier Worthy, but
Here's my
go with
defense.
Carter.
I think Mitchell will land at a better team.
Okay.
And will set him up better.
Yes.
Because I have my fit, which we can get to later, but I think there's one team that is in AD Mitchell range that needs an AD Mitchell that will have nothing to do with how good or bad Mitchell and Worthy are, but who he'll potentially play with. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I could see Xavier Worthy going to the Raiders or something.
Right. It's like, oh, okay.
Just get screwed.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like he's probably great. It's like we won't get to see right away because
Yeah.
But I think Xavier Worthy, he is a very good deep threat. And I think some of that got
Yes.
masked the last 2 years at Texas because he and Quinn Ewers did not connect very well on those deep balls. But a lot of them, he doesn't have a shot to even catch them. They're
No.
just
That's fair.
8 yards overthrown. You go back and watch his freshman year when he's playing with Casey Thompson and Hudson Card, he was the best receiver on the field at all times. I think he was kind of underappreciated at Texas.
I think it did get to a point because yes, I do think it was when Ewers first got there, we were like, okay, that's weird, but they'll work on it, right? And then it just never kind of clicked. But then you saw Ewers, maybe it was just something between those two, right? Because we saw Ewers connect with AD Mitchell, we saw Ewers connect with JT Sanders, and like you mentioned, we saw Worthy connect with other quarterbacks. So maybe it was just something with them too. Maybe it was the way that the system was ran as well with Ewers, right? Because as we saw, like Sark has not the type of coach to like go guns blazing, right? He loves like a very methodical approach with like the run game and like things over the middle, but that's not going to get the best out of Worthy. Also, sometimes Worthy's the guy clearing out a lot of that stuff, right? So it's like he goes over the top, cool, take the safety with you, JT Sanders out route, right? So I do wonder if it was like kind of a masking of like what he really could do, as opposed to like if Sark was say at Alabama, where they were kind of like doing all that, if he turns into more of a Devontae Smith type of like just like game breaker type. So
I think AD Mitchell had the wow plays. Like I think back to the TCU
he attacks
game.
the ball insanely well.
I think back to the TCU game where he literally bends horizontally backwards and catches the ball in midair, or the college football playoff where he double clutches. But he wasn't as consistent as Worthy.
Sure, I can agree with that. So as far as the Texas names, I think those are the three to watch.
Also, something on Byron Murphy. I saw a Greg Riddle Dallas Morning News story. Do you know Byron Murphy was a running back before junior year of high school?
That's terrifying.
That is
I actually did
so
see that
scary.
same article. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
And Claude Mathis, the DeSoto coach, was the one who moved Murphy from linebacker to defensive line when he took over in junior year.
There you go.
And the rest, as they
about to
say,
say.
is history.
His history.
So other names to potentially watch again in the first round. Maybe a Patrick Paul, but because this is kind of a really good tackle class. Like I do think from what I've kept track of, there's like 2 or 3 left tackles, and then there's like 8 right tackles. And so like a guy like a Tyler Guyton we mentioned from Manor, he's somebody who's like a right tackle, but like still teams need a tackle. And so,
But I think Tyler Guyton also was right tackle because Dylan Gabriel was left-handed.
I'm not saying that he can't play left tackle,
Yeah,
but I'm saying like
okay.
he would primarily probably be used at least immediately as a right tackle. Somebody like a Patrick Paul, I think could be a left tackle, but probably right when he goes to the NFL, probably throw him at right. So that's Patrick Paul is one of the other guys who's going to be maybe in that range, maybe not. Again, maybe in a different year, maybe he is more of a consistent first rounder. But I think we were kind of in consensus that there's probably 3 names to watch. Really 1 with maybe 2 as far as the first round's concerned. Okay, let's get into some of our little more saucy takes now.
Here we go. Let's get the takes
Saucy
firing.
takes.
We're either going to call our shot or get old takes exposed.
Listen,
right here.
listen, you got Tavondre Sweat in one of your draft
And
articles. so-
look, as we know, I'm not afraid. I'm gonna call my shot.
All right, let's go with sleepers. Who do we have as your sleeper? Carter, start with you.
I do not understand why more media attention is not being given to Luke McCaffrey, the Rice wide receiver.
Because right there, he went to Rice.
But his
That's probably
That's because he went to Rice. But he went to Rice.
his last name is McCaffrey, but he
is.
went to Rice.
But he went to Rice.
But if you watch the film, he is cooking dudes.
He is.
In the American Athletic Conference. He was the Rice wide receiver last year. The next guy had like 300 yards. He had 1,000, basically. And the one concern I had about Luke McCaffrey is the top end speed there. He runs faster than his brother Christian McCaffrey did at the NFL Combine.
I was about to say he had a 4.46 40, yeah.
I wondered, does he have to change direction? I know he can catch in traffic, but can he change direction? He runs a 4.02 second short shuttle, which was the fastest among the wide receiver group. And Matt Barrows of The Athletic had a very interesting piece about Luke McCaffrey where he's been working out with Anquan Bolden, who was a former college quarterback turned wide receiver. And the thing that Anquan Bolden said about McCaffrey is he's just so hungry to learn and so hungry to work on his craft. And when I interviewed Luke McCaffrey for a feature story last fall, that's the exact same mindset I got from him. And I think that's really admirable for a guy who comes from an NFL Pro Bowl, Super Bowl wide receiver father.
Right.
Christian McCaffrey is his brother, and this guy has no ego about him and wants to keep learning and gets excited about improving and getting told what he does wrong.
Yeah, it's often in Mallory. We've done this a couple of years now. I often try to balance how much I know about these guys versus okay, I gotta separate myself from how I feel about them versus how I think they'll do in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah. Luke McCaffrey is one of those guys where I've had to he is that good, right? I'm having to remind myself saying it's not just the fact that we know that he's a 1,000-yard receiver for Rice who didn't have other receiving options. He is actually that good. And it's no, yeah, he is. You just mentioned a lot of his measurables and everything about him. We use that for scouting as far as high school. We look at pedigree, right? We look at genetics, right? It's his family. It's his environment he was raised in. It's the fact that he was a quarterback until 2-3 years ago. And it's all these things trend towards, there's a good chance he's going to work out, right? Mm-hmm. So
I'm not saying that he's not going to get drafted.
Right,
I'm just saying there's a reason
saying.
why people aren't talking about him the way that maybe we think he should be talking about, and that's because he went to Rice.
They look at Rice and they're like, oh, that's fine,
right?
Cool, yeah,
exactly.
Neat, and
right,
so
right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with both your points. I'm very excited to see where he can land because I think that now he isn't pigeonholed into, where Byron Murphy is. We're playing for a potentially bad team or something like that. He could land somewhere like a Miami, a San Francisco, where it's they know how to use these receivers. They know how to develop. So
over this draft prep, I've gone from Luke McCaffrey was a great college player to he's going to get picked up by the San Francisco 49ers in the 4th round, and I'm getting him on my fantasy team because he's going to.
It's going to be a Brock Purdy situation, probably.
Yes.
Right. He's going to fall to the 5th round or whatever, and he's going to be oh, okay,
star.
Cool, yeah. All right, so my sleeper is, I don't know if it's a sleeper, but somebody who
I think it's a sleeper.
It probably is. If I would have said this was a sleeper last year, it would have not made sense. It's Josh Newton from TCU. Mm-hmm. I think he's somebody who everybody saw how the Travis Hunter game went, right, in the first game of the season, and they're cool, we're done. If he's not an NFL prospect or he's getting guys, Travis Hunter probably is going to be the first overall pick next year. It's okay.
He can play it.
It's okay that he couldn't defend a potentially generational athlete. That was awesome. And also, let's not say not defend. Travis Hunter had 3 again. I'm not saying he did not cook him a little bit. To say he couldn't defend him, he had 3 really good highlight catches, right? So it's not it was open every single play and it was it's a complete mismatch. It's man, who's covering that, right? Who are covering some of those plays against him?
It was like Apollo Creed fighting Ivan Drago for the first time.
Right.
It's no one knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's like he's dead. Nobody knew he was going to kill him. it's fine. But no, getting back on it, this time last year, we all looked at him as the best cornerback in the state, right? We all looked at him as a surefire, and he's going to get drafted. But his stock has fallen a little bit. The one thing that I do wonder, and I think Dane Brugler mentioned this as well, is yes, he does not have the prototypical size of a modern NFL corner, right? A lot of those guys are what I like to call the Richard Sherman molds, right? The 6'3", 205 plus pound guys. He's not that, right? Which again could lend itself to happen for what Travis Hunter did, for those things to happen. What I will say is he's somebody who was a 2-star prospect in high school, right? Purely developed, and has just learned and become kind of this. It's kind of the last of how the guys that TCU used to get all the time under Gary Patterson, right? He's kind of one of the last ones of that ilk. So I don't know. I think that he is somebody who, if that game did not get national attention, I think he's looked at a little bit better. I think around 4th, 5th round is probably where he'll be. I think he's a day 2 pick if that game doesn't happen and everybody doesn't sour on him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. All right, Mallory.
What you got?
I have 2.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I like it.
So we'll stay in state for now.
Okay.
And I don't even know if this is really considered an under the radar type of pick. Definitely not going to go in the first round because of the position that he plays, and that's Jonathan Brooks, Texas running back.
Yeah.
As you know, running backs, that's just not a valuable position. I don't want to say not valuable. It's not as valuable as a position anymore in the NFL anymore. Yeah. Right. It's just it's a hard position to play. It's a hard position to stay healthy in, especially in the NFL. So that's why I picked Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he's an athlete. He's got great size, 6 foot I think he's up to 215 now, so he's probably the ideal type size for a running back in the NFL. He's probably going to be a second rounder, but I think he's probably the best running back out of his class in the NFL.
Well, you know why it's a sleeper is because if he didn't get hurt and he played the college football playoff, he would be a first rounder.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I think so. I think because of you remember, which again, a lot of people forget because of how Texas lost him and still made the playoff, right?
Right.
So it was
Yeah.
like, oh, how good, there probably was a how good is he discussion. But to your point, he follows Bijan Robinson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Texas does not miss Bijan Robinson when he's healthy. Their running game, it found its way late, but it did miss him, right? It had CJ Baxter, Jadon Blue, but like Jonathan Brooks was number one before all those
The
guys.
reason they
Right.
lost the Washington game is because they couldn't run the football.
They couldn't run the football consistently. And I think that injury, it's a combination of the injury, yes,
Yes.
but also like, I do wonder, like, is he in the, Taj Brooks had a great year, obviously, Ollie Gordon did too, but like, is he more in that Doak Walker award conversation if he finishes the year, right?
Right.
With the pace he was on.
I think definitely.
Yeah. And then also, I think it's also different, like, again, Bijan just went in the first round 2 years ago, so it's like, oh, Texas can't have another first round running back. So I don't know if there was any of that conventional
Right.
wisdom going on or what, but I agree wholeheartedly.
He had an amazing year, but it almost felt like he did it quietly.
Yeah, a
Where
little bit.
Bijan Robinson had these runs where he broke 8 tackles, and
That's a good
Jonathan
run, too.
Brooks had very good runs, but he didn't have the runs that you were like, is this dude an alien?
Right. Yeah.
Not saying he's not a great running back.
Yeah,
but
he
I know
just
what you mean.
had to follow Bijan Robinson,
Right.
which
Very true.
kind of stinks.
Yeah, I mean, averaging 6 yards a carry, over 1,000 yards,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, in that.
He's a solid back.
Yeah.
Solid
Now,
back.
I think the Dallas Cowboys right now is what everyone thinks he's going to go to,
Right.
but we're going
Yeah,
to talk about
I like that. Well, because Tony Pollard's gone now too.
Tony Pollard,
So-
and they didn't. I mean, all the free agent running backs are gone too, so like
Yeah.
there is like a need for that type
It's
of
Right.
Rico Dowdle and Royce
and Deuce Vaughn right now.
and Deuce
Deuce
Vaughn.
Vaughn.
That's it. So there's room for a running back in that room.
We're going to talk about best fit. I saw honorable mention for worst fit, and that's Jonathan Brooks to the Carolina Panthers.
Which
that
is
would
also
be,
a mock that I'm seeing as well. 'Cause
That would be
they have-
gross.
They have the first pick in the third round, which that's starting to get to that. I think he's a second. I think he's worth a second, but I can see him falling to the third, and Carolina would absolutely jump on that, in my opinion, which is a problem because I do agree that is a bad fit.
please, for the love of God.
Oh boy. So yeah, here's hoping because after this, I don't know if people were confused or like a little surprised that he declared after getting
Yeah.
injured, but I'm glad that he did because I think people are going to see how good he really is in the league.
Facts.
All right, next.
Oh, you didn't let me say
yes,
my
no, that's right,
second
you had-
one.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead. You told us.
Which Michigan State player?
No. That's not
She's
what we're
out on,
talking
like,
about.
Every Michigan State player right now. Don't say.
I don't think there's a single one in
I was
this.
about to say. I can
Did
do
you
a
see our
quick
record
search.
last year?
Yeah.
We went 4-8. No. So this player does not he did not play his last couple seasons in the state of Texas,
I know you're gonna name it. Yes, keep going.
but he became a breakout star in the state of Texas, and that's Jacob Cowing.
Boom. Let's
Arizona
go.
wide receiver, formerly UTEP wide receiver.
Yes.
I've been on the Jacob Cowing train since he was at UTEP, and I think both of you two were as well.
This predates me. This is you and Ish's
This
joint right
actually
here.
is. I remember talking about him like in 2022 when you were like, dude, this guy's good. Or
He's-
2021, this
it was
guy's
21,
good.
21, yeah. So
2021.
It was he was stellar. Him and Justin Garrett for UTEP. 1,300. This is his UTEP stats. 1,300 yards before he transferred to Arizona, where he still had a 1,000-yard season.
1,000-yard
and then
season.
848 yards, which they had some quarterback issues this year. So like fluctuated. He still had 13 touchdowns last year. So 27 touchdowns the last 3
Yeah,
years.
him and Gavin Hardison cooked
They-
at UTEP.
That UTEP offense, again, let me take you back 2 years ago when UTEP had their best season under Dana Dimmel. Their offense was just run the ball for 3 yards a carry and then just chuck it deep.
Chuck it deep
Go
to
look at.
Jacob
I always
Cowing.
like to reference their stats because their average per pass was like up there with Army and Navy, who who only throw when it's like a trick, so it's always
Yeah.
like 20, 30 yards. And so UTEP was right up there with him, and they did not run a triple option. They just ran a conventional offense. They just threw it deep so many times. So I love that Jacob Cowing
Yeah.
pick because people cannot forget how good he was for UTEP and kind of making him, giving them that explosion that season.
Well, and here's the thing, too. I think that he's flying so under the radar because this wide receiver draft class is
deep.
so talented.
It's
I mean,
so
we just
deep.
talked about two of the best receivers from Texas.
Yeah.
They're going to go in the first round, too. But he's a great route runner. He's great at creating separation, and those are two skills that really, really translate at that next level. So I love that pick. He's probably my biggest sleeper pick, but I think he's going to be dominant in the NFL.
100%, especially because, like we mentioned, Gavin Hardison, we saw what Gavin Hardison was like when he didn't have him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And then Arizona, when Arizona had QB issues, but the one thing they had was Jacob Cowing.
Yep.
And so, again, shout out to UTEP for putting us on first, because they were the first to see him. Scotty O'Hara,
Yeah.
former
Yeah.
wide receiver coach, he was very big in development.
We will not forget.
We will not forget that era. All right, now let's transition to best potential fit. All right, I hinted at mine earlier, so I'm just going to go with it. Mine's A.D. Mitchell to the Chiefs, plain and simple. They have the last pick in the first round. Obvious, they need a number one wide receiver. I know they just won a Super Bowl without one technically, but that's kind of one of their last holes on the team. That is why I think that Mitchell could be a better pro than Worthy, because Mitchell, look at the teams in the range of that late first round. Jacksonville, give or take, but they have Trevor Lawrence. Again, there is a Vegas in there, so we'll see. It's kind of a little pitfall, but the Ravens, Niners won't need him, but the Chiefs as well. And so all of a sudden you start looking at those teams, you're like, oh yeah, like Mitchell could fall to one of those teams that just knows how to use the wide receiver. I think it's the best fit. Obviously, it helps if your quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, but also it helps if you have a wide receiver who attacks the ball like A.D. Mitchell does and kind of has that alpha mentality.
The best case scenario that we can have for a Texas podcast is Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell go to the Bills and Chiefs.
Oh, that'd be great. Or the Dolphins. I'll do the Dolphins too.
And I would like the Dolphins. Can you imagine Xavier Worthy and the baby teal? How fast he'd look.
Man,
Tyreek
Hill,
Tyreek Hill, Xavier Worthy.
Oh my
Devon
God.
A-Chain.
See, I want that a lot better, because a lot more, because can't you kind of imagine Xavier Worthy going to the Chiefs and being kind of the next Mecole Hardman to
That's my
Kadarius
worry.
Toney,
That's my worry.
where he becomes the new scapegoat a
Yeah,
little bit?
if he doesn't get 1,000 yards receiving this year, it's like, oh, Worthy bust. You
Yeah.
know? It's like,
Right.
yeah.
See, here, I'll go next too,
Yeah,
because
go for
I had Xavier Worthy going to Kansas City as a best fit, and then I had A.D. Mitchell for the Bills.
Okay,
And the
okay,
reason I
I can
chose
see
that,
that.
I chose Xavier Worthy for the Chiefs because he reminds me a lot of Tyreek Hill, one of the
Yes.
fastest guys, obviously made history in the NFL Combine with the fastest 40 time, but he reminds me a lot of Tyreek Hill. And since Tyreek Hill's been gone, I feel like that they've been looking for that next fastest guy, and that could be Xavier Worthy. But either one, I think that you can't go wrong with either receiver
It's scary
at
to
this
think
point.
about.
But
It's scary to think about the Chiefs with either one. Right. now,
right. It's very scary.
I
But
do like the Bills mentioning, because they basically just sold everybody this offseason. And
Stephon Diggs, yeah, like they
yes,
need somebody.
They need somebody. So that is a team I did not consider potentially trading around, seeing if they can get somebody late in the first or early in the second. So that's actually a really good fit.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a less flashy position.
Okay.
And for my best fit, I'm going TCU guard tackle Brandon Coleman going
I
to
like
Houston,
it. I like
Texas.
it.
That's a good one.
That's your boy. You did a good story on him earlier in the year.
Yeah, Brandon Coleman, a former select basketball player in Germany,
Yeah.
translates that athleticism to TCU. What do you do when you find your franchise quarterback in CJ Stroud? You got to get guys to protect him.
Yeah.
And right now they have Laramie Tunsil, who is about to be 30 years old, coming off of surgery. The line last year was about 15th in the NFL in sacks allowed. A lot of that was masked by CJ Stroud's mobility. The line was a little porous, and we saw that in the run game. I think Brandon Coleman would be a great fit in maybe the third, fourth round for the Houston Texans, because he can play both sides too.
Sure.
He can fill in for Laramie Tunsil. He can also be a guard
Yeah.
on the interior.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what kind of makes him intriguing, is that, yeah, if you think you can get 2, 3, 4 more years of production under Tunsil, I don't know how big his contract is, but you just got to start looking for that next guy. And a Coleman is a little bit more of a budgetary pickup. He's not going to hit you cap, he's not going to be a first round pick, so he's not going to hit your cap really well, or impact it a lot, I should say. But he's somebody who, as we saw this past year, I mean, that offensive, people don't talk enough about the offensive line when TCU made the title game.
People don't talk enough about the TCU draft prospects because they had a tough season last year, and it's like all these darlings that played basically the same. The overall team was worse,
Yeah.
but all these guys played basically the same the next
when they
year.
played the national championship, yeah,
Yeah, 2
right.
years
And
ago.
everyone's like, we're just not talking about them anymore.
Right. That's a good point, yeah, because you got Newton and him, and then Mark Perry's another one as well. So, man.
Jared Wiley.
Jared Wiley,
We'll get to that guy.
We'll get to that guy
him
in a
second.
bit. So, yes, that gives, that leads us to our last topic, which is the one that we're just going to call our shot right now. The best player from this draft from the state of Texas. And yes, my pick is that dude, Jared Wiley.
Jared Wiley.
Tight
That
end
was
of
mine
TCU.
too.
Listen.
I can't believe both of you have
I
this pick.
know.
Look, listen. It took when he was a prospect, it was hard for me to see the translate. I didn't follow him on the recruiting circuit, so I didn't see him in camps and all that. He was recruited as a tight end, even though he was a quarterback, right, at Temple. So it was hard for me to see that translation.
He's
at
just
Texas,
an
he got
athlete.
hurt. So I was like, okay, that sucks. Former 5-star, blah, 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 just didn't live up to the hype. This past year, TCU just unlocked a new level.
He's a great blocker.
He's a great blocker. He is a tight end who is if you put the silhouettes of him and Brock Bowers, you can't tell them
Yes.
apart, right? Obviously, Jared Wiley's taller, but Brock Bowers, I get it, right? He's Brock Bowers' production levels off the charts as well. But if you just put them in a silhouette, don't look at their stats, you're like, which one's the first round pick, right?
Right.
You really don't know. If he can stay healthy, and that is an if, because that is something that hampered his Texas career. That is something that is a reason why he could not really be the focal point of the entire offense his entire time at TCU. It's because of its injury. I think he's a star in the making. I think this past year was just a little taste. And if you look at the best tight ends in the NFL, they aren't always in the first round. They're in the second, third, fourth round
You
range.
get the value.
You get the value, exactly. So I'm going Jared Wiley. I'm calling my shot. We're going to look back in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years and be like, he went where? Fourth round?
Because
third
tight
round?
ends, tight end's that piece where you don't get a top 10 tight end. You're a competitive team that then adds a tight end and
Right.
becomes so much more dangerous because
Right.
of it.
Right.
I'm going to go for my best pro is someone you don't get to just add to a competitive team. That's who you got to get in the early rounds, and that's Patrick Paul, Houston right tackle. He was 3-time first-team All-Conference. He was DCTF's best lineman last year, and by the way, he did that in the Group of 5 and then in the Big 12 that last year. He had 2 sacks given up and 1,034 pass blocking opportunities in the last 2 seasons. And he had the national best pass blocking grade among tackles according to PFF last year. And oh, by the way, cherry on top, his brother already plays in the NFL. Chris Paul, the other Chris Paul, on the Washington Commanders, offensive guard. He's got the NFL bloodline. He's got the production. He's got the size. I don't see how it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
He did an interview on Twitter. I don't know if you saw the interview. I think it was I can't remember who it was with Stadium or somebody. But he said a lot of teams have way different draft boards than public mocks. He basically said, expect to see me late Thursday.
Okay, I like
All
that.
right. I like the
He's
confidence.
either somebody has told him something, right? Or he's confident that
Yeah.
somebody's going to move up for him. Because this, like I mentioned, this is a really good tackle draft up top, but also very late. Teams like the Cowboys who need to get younger on the offensive
Now,
line.
if he really wanted to call a shot, he'd sit in the green room at the NFL draft.
I know, right? Yeah, he would just show up. He wasn't invited. He would just show up to the green room. Be like, I'm just gonna park it right here, y'all. I'll see y'all in a bit. So yeah, that was. I mean, what were you gonna say, Mallory?
I was just going to say, here's the tough thing to me about this question
Yes.
is that obviously you can be a great player, but if you're not picked up by the right team or put in the right system,
Yes.
It's tough.
it's to me, I always think of I think Mac Jones was a great quarterback at Alabama.
Sure.
I don't think the Patriots were necessarily the best fit for
He
him.
wasn't a day one starter.
No. And I think that obviously is leading to where he is now and kind of his stock falling a little bit. But that's what was so hard about this question. It's like if these players don't go to the right team or if they're not being utilized to their full potential, it's
Sure.
like how can you tell who's going to be the best player until after the draft, right?
So let's redo this question next Wednesday.
Yeah,
How about
right,
that?
exactly.
Let's
Once
watch
we
the
That's what I'm
draft.
getting at.
Let me get a mulligan next Wednesday when we all figure out exactly.
Yeah,
everything that
literally.
Like if Jared Wiley goes to the Saints, then we're redo.
right.
He's like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo? Let me, or no, not Jimmy Garoppolo, Carr. I think it's David, Derek
Same
Carr.
thing.
Derek Carr.
I was
Yeah.
about to say, they're like the same brand of Jimmy Garoppolo, basically.
He literally.
We got Jimmy Garoppolo at home.
That's a great point because there are so many players here where we think we just mentioned our best fits, things like that, right?
Yeah.
A.D. Mitchell, Chiefs, which they're in range, but also they're one pick away from the Panthers, right? So
Exactly.
it could easily be he could really be struggling. Oh, my quarterback can't see over his center, so I can't get the ball, so that's going to be a problem. So, all right. So with that
Exactly.
being said, that'll wrap up our NFL draft talk. NFL draft, again, starts Thursday, first round. And then, of course, I don't need to plug the NFL draft or anything, but you get how the
If you
schedule
don't know where to
works.
find the NFL draft,
Have you heard of the NFL, by the way?
What does that stand for? I have no idea.
National something. I don't know. But anyway.
National Flowers League.
It's on Sunday. It's
where
weird.
is the draft this year? Do we know?
Detroit.
Is it Detroit? Okay,
Detroit.
nice.
Really?
Because I was when I went up to see a Michigan State basketball game 2 years ago, it was downtown Detroit was decked out for the 2024 NFL draft.
Yeah,
Wow.
So I've got pictures and videos of all of it. But yeah, it's in Detroit.
That's
Next
tough that it was in Nashville last year. If you waited to declare one more year and you go to Detroit now instead of
Hey, Detroit's cool. Go Lions,
By the way,
man.
you know where it is next year? This is going to be actually pretty funny.
No.
Albuquerque.
Close.
What?
Weirdly, Green Bay.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, it's in Green Bay.
I love
Which,
this.
again, historically, sure, makes sense, but also Green Bay is like
Okay.
a tourist spot is very funny to consider. But
Yeah,
anyway.
it is.
So yeah, that'll do it for us. Again, we'll keep track on TexasFootball.com. We'll be having stories drop. We'll be recirculating some stories as well from players getting drafted of things that we've done on them in the fall. I mentioned Jalex Hunt. Corey did one earlier, last year during the season. I mentioned Carter's Tyrus Knight piece. Remember the A.D. Mitchell piece from Craven, and then of course Carter's Tyler Guyton piece as well. All up on TexasFootball.com. By the way, big shout out to Greg Powers, who has a lot of these guys ranked from when they were in high school. So again, that's another reason we'll be paying attention to.
Shout out Greg Powers.
this
Except for
weekend.
Tyler Guyton. And if you read my story, you'll find out why.
Exactly. Hey, look, it was hard to look. You can look on national rankings. They were like, oh. They were like, I don't know how to rank this guy. So anyway, please keep it locked, TexasFootball.com. All weekend we'll have your draft coverage, DCTF on Twitter, all that stuff as well. I'm actually making graphics right now, so we'll be having.
And they look sick.
Thank you. So we'll be having a bunch of coverage. Mike Elko, please come on the podcast. And of course, as you see, go Rutgers.
Go Rutgers, man.